Welcome once again to Shir Chadash in Yerushalayim. I thought I might share a few words this week about our Sedra, Parshat Vayigash. Parshat Vayigash, of course, contains the dramatic conclusion to the Joseph saga, the story of Yosef and his brothers. And we know that Yosef finally reveals himself to his brothers, Ani Yosef Od Avichai. I am Joseph, does my father yet live? At this moment, Yosef then sends for Yaakov to join the family, to participate in an incredible family reunion that's 22 years in the making, that Jacob should come down from the land of Israel to join the rest of the family in Egypt. Now, you'd think that after all this time, with Yaakov believing that his beloved son Yosef had perished, he'd be ecstatic to go. He'd run to Egypt. But the Torah tells us that on the eve of his departure, Hashem appears to Yaakov in a prophetic vision in the night. Yaakov has a prophetic dream. And in that prophetic dream, God speaks to Yaakov and says, don't be afraid to go down to Mitzrayim. I am going to go down with you, and I will surely bring you back up. The question is, what was Yaakov afraid of? Why was Yaakov hesitant to go to Mitzrayim? As we said earlier, you'd think he'd be ecstatic to finally see Joseph after all these years. So Rashi, the great medieval commentary in the Torah, explains that Yaakov was simply afraid to leave the land of Israel. He was concerned about departing from his beloved land of Israel. Now, at a certain level, that's a beautiful idea, but what does that mean? All of us, at some point in our lives, have experienced the trepidation and the stress associated with a geographic relocation of moving out of a particular home or apartment, moving to a different city. Those of us that have experienced Aliyah, of coming to live in the land of Israel. What was Yaakov so afraid of? Was it simply that geographic relocation? So the Netziv, Rabbi Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, one of the great 19th century lights of the Jewish people, the Netziv takes Rashi's interpretation a step further. The Netziv suggests that Yaakov was afraid not solely of the stress of that geographic relocation, he was afraid more of the reality of a spiritual upheaval. What this move will mean, not only for himself, but the implication for future generations if the Jewish people were to sojourn for some period of time in Egypt. So God promises Yaakov, don't worry, I will be there with you while you sojourn into the Golah, into the dispersion of exile, and I will surely bring you back up to the land of Israel. Rabbi Moshe Wolfson, one of the great teachers of Chassidut today in the world, Rabbi Wolfson suggests something very powerful. He says it's no coincidence that we read this story, the conclusion of this dramatic story, in the days immediately following Hanukkah. Hanukkah, of course, appears every winter in the midst of sometimes the darkest period of the calendar year, when the days are the shortest, the amount of daylight and sunlight really it's the shortest period of daylight during these winter months. And Hanukkah comes in that period. Hanukkah, which represents light, which represents joy, which represents a spiritual recharge. And then on the heels of Hanukkah, when we may be descending, falling back into those dark moments, those dark days, says Reb Moshe Wilson, along comes this story where Hashem promises the Jewish people, I am going to be there with you as you descend, so to speak, into those dark days, and I promise you, I'll lift you back up as well. If you think about this entire story, says Rabbi Wilson, and how it transpires, Joseph is sitting on the throne, so to speak. He's the number 2 in all of Mitzrayim. And the brothers themselves are afraid of Joseph. They think this is a stranger who is trying to divide their family. But in reality, Joseph finally reveals himself that he's no stranger. He's their long-lost brother. And this act that they perceive is going to be something that's going to further divide and destroy their family actually secures and unites their family. Rabbi Wilson explains the message of this entire story is this simple idea of Yeshuat Hashem Ke'araf Ayin. That sometimes God brings salvation at the blink of an eye. Sometimes God brings us great miracles when things seem so dark, seem impossible. And the message of this entire story, says Rav Moshe Wilson so poignantly, as we descend into those winter months where we might feel, you know what, we're stuck. We can't change. Things are so dark. We're so depressed. Along comes the story to remind us, Yeshua Hashem Ke'eref Ayin. Don't get stuck in the darkness. Hold on to that light of Hanukkah and realize that Hashem is with us in the darkest moments, and Hashem will surely lift us up as well. My blessing for all of us is that we should hold fast to this beautiful message conveyed in this prophetic vision. As Hashem promises Jacob, don't worry, don't be concerned, I'm always there with you. We should hold on to that same idea deep in our hearts, that God is there with us no matter what life challenges we face. And B'ezrat Hashem, we should be blessed with the fulfillment of Yeshua Hashem, Ke'eref Ayin, that God will bring salvation at the blink of an eye, just as He promises Jacob so many, many years ago. I'm going to go down to Mitzrayim with you. Don't be afraid. I'm going to go down with you, and I'll surely lift you up and bring you back home to the land of Israel as well. May it be Hashem's will that we should merit to see that redemption. Whatever challenges we're facing, that we should merit to see that redemption speedily in our days. Shabbat Shalom.